cancer. A word filled with fear, evoking images of an invisible, relentless enemy that invades the body without warning. Despite decades of research, it remains an almost insoluble mystery, a puzzle scientists strive to decipher. But what many don't know is that, in the quest to understand cancer, we encounter an even more enigmatic paradox. This paradox reveals that large animals, like whales and elephants, have surprisingly low cancer rates. This contradicts scientific logic. The bigger the organism, the more cells it has, which theoretically should increase the chances of mutations, and therefore, cancer. So why do these giants seem almost immune? This question led to the formulation of Peto's paradox, casting a new light on our understanding of health, evolution, and survival. With this, a provocative question emerges. Are we on the verge of discovering knowledge that could transform the fight against cancer? Or is this a mystery that will remain beyond our reach? Let's dive into the surprising answers that science and philosophy have to offer. Our cells are tiny machines, yet incredibly complex. Each cell functions like a biological robot, made up of millions of parts working together to keep the organism alive and functioning. But even with this precision, mistakes happen. In every cell division, there's a chance that something could go wrong. It's a matter of probability. Small errors accumulate, like gears that slowly begin to fail. To prevent these errors from causing chaos, cells have a self-destruct mechanism. If a cell senses that something is wrong and can't be fixed, it triggers cellular suicide, or apoptosis, a function that prevents it from becoming a threat. But this mechanism isn't always enough. Some cells slip through this control system and start multiplying without restriction. These rogue cells form what we know as cancer. Normally, the immune system eliminates these cells before they cause severe issues. But over time, a malignant cell can accumulate enough mutations to multiply uncontrollably. Cancer then spreads, and the body is forced to fight an internal, invisible threat, born from the very processes that ensure survival. Curiously, this internal battle seems to vary drastically across species. In humans with billions of cells and a long lifespan, the probability of a fatal error is high. But the same doesn't occur in massive animals, like whales. This phenomenon contradicts logic. The more cells an organism has, the greater the chance of developing cancer. Yet whales and elephants almost never have cancer. That's the mystery we aim to solve. To understand why, we need to look deeper into the differences between these animals' cellular systems and ours. By studying how these cells behave, scientists have discovered that, in large animals, the defense systems are incredibly robust. But there is still much we don't understand. What could be the source of this resilience? And what else might these creatures have evolved to protect themselves? These questions lead us to Peto's paradox, a scientific observation that challenges our perception of cancer and evolution. Could it be that these animals have developed such advanced defense systems that they are virtually immune to cancer? Or are we looking at an adaptation that's even more profound and mysterious? Peto's paradox raises questions that go beyond biology. It challenges our understanding of life and the forces that shape living beings. After all, why are some organisms able to resist such a devastating disease, while others are vulnerable? The answer seems to lie not just in the body, but in the way we interpret existence and survival itself. This paradox prompts us to reflect on the nature of adaptation and evolution. If cancer is a failure of cellular cooperation, it also makes us question the balance between the good of the individual and the good of the whole organism. Large animals, like elephants and whales, have developed mechanisms that preserve this internal harmony, shielding them from destructive mutations. Perhaps philosophy can shed light on what this means, In terms of our own struggle with disease, historically, philosophers have explored concepts of cooperation and self-sufficiency. Are these giants of nature somehow more aligned with the universe, living in a more harmonious way, and thus being less susceptible to imbalances like cancer? Or perhaps their adaptation is evidence that evolution always finds ways to protect what is essential for life's continuity. This question brings a new perspective to the role of disease in nature. If we view cancer as an enemy, could it also serve a purpose in natural selection? In complex organisms, perhaps this self-sabotage helps regulate excesses, eliminating what isn't in tune with healthy functioning. Ironically, could cancer itself be part of nature's balance? Peto's paradox also highlights an existential dilemma. Why does death arrive unexpectedly for some, while others seem almost immune? It exposes a gap between what we understand about life and the biological reality that composes us. At the same time, it brings hope that, by unraveling these mysteries, we might one day transform our relationship with cancer, and perhaps with mortality itself. Finally, this reflection brings us back to cancer as a breakdown of cooperation. This paradox makes us consider what happens when cells, or even people, act in their own interests, ignoring the greater whole. If harmony is essential for the survival of the largest creatures, perhaps our battle against cancer is also a quest to understand and restore this lost harmony. To understand Peto's paradox, we need to observe how evolution has shaped defense mechanisms against cancer. Evolution isn't just a process of adaptation, it's a story of survival, where organisms adjust to avoid life-threatening risks. Multicellular beings face a significant challenge. The larger the organism, the more cells it must control. And with more cells, there's a higher probability of failure. The first multicellular organisms that emerged millions of years ago had simple systems and short lifespans. But as some organisms began to grow, the need for stronger defenses against cancer became a matter of life and death. Those that failed to adapt to control mutant cells simply did not survive to pass on their genes. Large animals, such as elephants and whales, needed special adaptations to avoid cancer. They couldn't grow and evolve without developing robust mechanisms to resist cellular mutations. Research shows that these animals have tumor suppressor genes in significantly higher quantities than humans. These genes act like internal guards, constantly monitoring cells and destroying any that exhibit cancerous behavior. This process doesn't come without cost. Some of these evolutionary adaptations may have consequences for these animals. For instance, the greater number of tumor suppressor genes in elephants might explain why they have shorter reproductive periods compared to other species. Nevertheless, the trade-off seems worthwhile. The ability to keep cells under control allows these animals to live longer with a lower risk of life-threatening diseases. Peto's paradox suggests that nature has found ways to balance the risk of mutation with the need for survival. Here we see science and evolution converging. Science, in studying these organisms, reveals how nature solves complex problems, while evolution shows that to endure, life must find solutions that often surpass human understanding. This harmony between evolution and science reminds us that cancer, at its core, is a failure of cellular cooperation. When cells act selfishly and chaotically, they endanger the organism's life. Evolution, therefore, favors organisms that can maintain a cooperative cellular structure, where each cell acts for the good of the whole. Ultimately, studying large animals and their resistance to cancer may offer paths for new therapies in humans. By understanding how these organisms avoid harmful mutations, we might develop treatments inspired by their evolutionary strategies. This represents an opportunity to merge what science knows about genetics with what evolution teaches about survival. A fascinating and unsettling idea arises from studying large animals and their cancer defenses, the concept of hypertumors. At its core, a hypertumor is a tumor of a tumor. Just as parasites can have their own parasites, it's believed that tumors can also develop subtumors that compete with each other. This creates an internal battle where mutated cells fight for resources, leading to mutual destruction. This phenomenon suggests that cancer, as devastating as it is, has a weakness, its own selfish nature. A tumor forms when cells multiply uncontrollably, absorbing nutrients from the body to grow. But at some point, these cells may undergo new mutations, becoming even more competitive and aggressive. This extreme selfishness causes some cells to stop cooperating, creating hypertumors that attack the original tumor, cutting off its blood supply. The concept of cancer killing cancer is remarkable. It raises the question of how sustainable selfishness truly is, both on a cellular scale and in life itself. If cancer cells could think, one might say they destroy themselves by ignoring the well-being of the collective. This reflects a philosophical lesson. When cooperation fails, the system collapses. The idea that a tumor can self-destruct resonates with existential questions about our own choices and actions. Society, like an organism, depends on collaboration and harmony among its members to thrive. When there is an imbalance, whether in a cell or a social group, the system begins to deteriorate. Thus, this cellular phenomenon serves as a metaphor for humanity. How far can selfishness go before we face its consequences? Understanding that cancer's nature involves a breakdown of cooperation leads us to question the very essence of disease. What if cancer is simply an extreme response to a lack of balance? In a large animal, the hypertumor prevents cancer from advancing, keeping the body functional. This suggests that perhaps evolution has found a way to use cancer itself to limit its spread. The struggle between tumor and hypertumor then prompts us to reflect on life as a constant balance between order and chaos. This cycle of self-destruction reminds us that what appears to be destruction may actually be a way to maintain harmony in complex organisms. It also raises an existential question. How much selfishness does nature tolerate before it creates mechanisms for self-regulation? The existence of hypertumors and their impact on large animals shows that nature is more resilient and adaptable than we might imagine. Even a deadly disease like cancer finds an equilibrium in large beings, as if life has hidden ways to protect itself. This phenomenon also opens doors for new treatments. By exploring the concept of hypertumors, science might find ways to apply this strategy in anti-cancer therapies for humans. In the end, Peto's paradox and hypertumors show us that life is a complex dance between competition and cooperation. Each cell that composes a living being is part of a larger system, and cancer reflects a breakdown in this collaboration. Large animals may not be immune to cancer, but they seem to have a natural form of control where the tumor is sabotaged from within. The study of Peto's paradox and hypertumors reveals how nature is filled with unexpected answers to seemingly unsolvable problems. When we look at cancer, a disease affecting millions of lives, we see not only a threat, but an opportunity to learn. Large animals, with their sophisticated defense mechanisms, show us that, rather than eliminating risk entirely, evolution has found ways to balance the forces that make life possible. This quest for balance reflects humanity's own dilemma. When facing diseases and challenges, it's not just survival at stake, but a deeper understanding of how life functions. Cancer, while devastating, provides a unique perspective on the need for cooperation, both at a cellular level and in our own social interactions. Learning from the adaptations of elephants and whales could open the door to new therapies for humans. By understanding how these animals keep their cells under control, medicine may find solutions that harness the natural resilience of each organism. Peto's paradox becomes a symbol of the union between science and evolution in the search for answers that benefit all. Ultimately, cancer, with its profound impact and biological nuances, leads us to reflect on our own mortality and what it means to live in harmony with the world around us. Each scientific discovery sheds a little more light on a universe full of mysteries, and perhaps by understanding these mechanisms, we can find new ways to extend and enhance life. At the end of this journey through Peto's paradox, it's clear that there's much to learn from nature and its ingenious ways of solving challenges. If this content has brought you a new perspective, share your thoughts on what impressed you the most, or what makes you reflect on our own fight against cancer and mortality. Could it be that, like large animals, we too can find harmony and cooperation to overcome our biggest challenges? Don't forget to share this video with others who, like you, are curious about the unknown and want to better understand the connections between science, philosophy, and existence. And if you haven't subscribed yet, join us as we continue exploring mysteries like this, where science and deep thought meet. Together we can build a community that values knowledge and the pursuit of answers. Life is full of questions, but perhaps in our collective quest, we can unlock some of its deepest secrets.